I don't think that going to be the D coordinator under Morgan gets him closer to being a head coach. If Morgan Scalley flounders there and Jay is with him, then he gets that bad juju on him. If Morgan Scalley flounders and Jay is at BYU, I absolutely think that Jay would be very high on the list that they're offering to be the next head coach.
Hello and welcome to the App Dave Podcast Studio. This is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Edmonds, joined once again by Tosh McIntosh. One week hiatus. We had Hema Heimuli on. We also had Jared McGregor from the BYU basketball team on Friday. A little special
busy
episode.
Week.
Yeah. How was your week?
It was fantastic. Yeah, December. I'm somebody that actually really loves December. I've got 2 kids' birthdays. I actually am all here for the chaos of Christmas parties all the time. And anyway, it's been fun.
Yeah. As we approach the holiday season and bowl season. And it's funny, we're not even really talking about the bowl game. We'll have next week to talk about that, but BYU getting ready for Georgia Tech. Unfortunately, not Notre Dame. I am going to get your opinion on that because it was a last week's topic, but you weren't here last week, so I want to get your opinion on that. First of all, shout out, though, to Kyle Van Noy. Did you see his interception?
Yeah, it was good for him. Yeah, it was smart, good savvy play. And I think of him as a fast dude, but obviously he thought, I need to give this ball to someone who's faster.
I mean, I think at BYU he was a fast dude.
Yeah.
I think as he gets older, he puts on some weight, and I think at some point he's like, I'm not running 96 yards or whatever to the house. So he just nonchalantly hands it off to his teammate who runs it in for pick 6, and the rest is history. Is Kyle Van Noy the best linebacker with an OY in his name in the NFL?
Yes. I'll just say yes because I can't think of anyone else. But surely you've thought of some others.
I mean, Utah fans would argue, right? Devin Lloyd.
There you go. Well, for sure, Kyle Van Noy is better than Devin Lloyd.
That was a very specific punchline. I wasn't sure if you were going to catch on to that.
No.
All right. So yes, we'll agree that Kyle Van Noy is the best linebacker. Maybe the best linebacker without even the OY, right? The best linebacker in the NFL.
He's playing really, really good, and Fred Warner's hurt. It's just between those two, right?
Yeah, right. So. That's just those guys. Yeah, no one else. Okay. So surprisingly, we're actually going to start today's episode with basketball talk. We haven't done that, I think, since probably last January, February, March, right?
Tis the season.
It's been football. So basketball starting to kind of make a name for themselves, and not starting to. They've already made a name for themselves, but they're really starting to come into their own, I feel like. And the Clemson game was kind of the start of that. And it's funny because like the Clemson game, the way it started, it was like, what are we doing? Like this is UConn all over again.
That's been a reoccurring theme, multiple games where our first half's just been terrible and then our second half's amazing. And why do you think that is, Jake?
I was going to ask you. So my theory is, well, there's kind of multiple theories here. I think that part of it is that AJ and maybe Richie to an extent, they realize that it's kind of a 6-man rotation, maybe 7 if Kostic or Murus have good games, but like really it's a 5 or 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
And they have to kind of pace themselves a little bit. And so they come into the first half and they just kind of nonchalantly do their own thing and hope that things go their way. And when they don't, that's when they decide they have to turn it on. I don't know if I fully believe that theory because I think AJ's too big of a competitor to really like flip a switch like that. I think he goes into the game thinking I'm going to take over this game at some point. I would hope that it's in the first half, but I don't think he's going in and thinking like I'm going to pace myself and wait until the second half to actually turn it on.
It's interesting. I hadn't considered that preserving energy part, but when you're saying a 6-man rotation, I think that's generous. Like it's a 5. We have 5 players with a pulse right now.
I mean, I think Hadim has to come in to spell Keita, but you're right. The other 4 guys, they could play all 40 minutes and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And so maybe they are, and I'm thinking more on the defensive end because that's what I've noticed against UConn, against Clemson, that our defense looked terrible in the first half, and then our intensity and our willingness just to be like getting after it in the second half just really stifles teams and forces a lot of turnovers and gets us easy buckets. And so maybe there is something to that they're a little preserving energy, but whatever it is, it's crazy. And I will also say it's fun to watch. Yeah. Like the range of emotions you get in a first half to a second half of a BYU basketball game right now is crazy.
I think it'd be more fun to watch if it was kind of a similar outcome to what we saw with UC Riverside. Now, granted, Clemson is not UC Riverside.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my second theory was like defensively, the intensity is just not there. They're still going under screens. They're still not like scrapping for rebounds. By the way, I saw during UC Riverside, and granted, again, it's UC Riverside, and so it's hard to really put too much stock into this, but I really saw an effort to go after defensive rebounds, probably more than I had in the past. And Clemson's the first half against Clemson, you saw that again. They could not rebound. They could not get on the defensive boards and gave up way too many offensive rebounds. And even for the whole game, I thought Clemson had too many offensive boards. But again, BYU's defense, their ability to turn them over, to speed up Clemson, to get them in uncomfortable situations, led, I thought, to a lot of offense. AJ, obviously, 6 points in the first half, 22 in the second half. He also had 7 rebounds. And that's something that I think is going to be a really underrated and underappreciated stat from AJ, with BYU's inability to rebound the ball. And we'll talk about who they're bringing in to potentially help them in that department. But their inability to rebound the ball, AJ has to be kind of this like scrappy rebounder, because I've talked about Keba in the past, and I think Keba's a great defender in terms of protecting the rim. I don't think he's a phenomenal on-ball defender, nor should he be. He's he's kind of a taller, lankier dude. I wouldn't expect him to lock down offensive players on the perimeter, but I think he needs to be a better rebounder. And if he's not, it needs to be guys like AJ. Rob actually I think is a pretty underrated rebounder as well. Correct.
Yeah, look, I fully agree. This team's weaknesses, one is rebounding, the other one is lack of depth. That we do have a guy coming in December 19th that helps with that. Before we dive there, though, what I think that BYU learned in the Clemson game is that Keita needs to hang on the rim, cause a delay, give our starters rest, because I'm of course being a little facetious. I actually think it was one of the keys to the game.
Yeah.
That it allowed our starting 5 to play basically the entire second half. We had some starters that played every minute of the second half because there was that extended break that gave us all a rest. And the announcers kept saying, BYU's got to be ticked off. They had such momentum. And I'm like, we were about ready to run out of steam and have to put some subs in. And all of a sudden we were well rested. So maybe we'll see some more monstrous dunks that he's just hanging on the rim and getting us a nice little delay to rest up.
Yeah, I think BYU only had, I'm looking at the box score right now, only had 6 minutes, unless I'm reading this wrong, 6 minutes from their bench.
Yeah, total. It's crazy. Only 2 bench guys for 3 minutes each in the second half. We were able to play our starters that entire second half, and I think that was a big key to the game.
It absolutely was. So let's talk about the support that BYU is bringing in. So Abdullah Ahmed's joining the team, I think, at the end of the semester. So the semester ends, I think, December 17th. And then per Robbie McCombs, he says that he will join the team on December 19th. He says he appeared in 15 games for the Westchester Knicks in the NBA G League, which to me is a wild concept that we've got.
G League players coming to BYU and college in general.
It wasn't long ago that, remember like when you declared for the NBA draft, you were like,
done.
Right? Done.
Yeah.
And then they changed it to like, well, if you declare but then pull out within a period of time, then
hire an agent or not.
But it was like if you ever played professional basketball, like there's zero chance you can play in college. And we've now had Jaeger was a professional basketball player too, wasn't he, in Europe?
Boscovich was too.
Yeah. So we've got a G Leaguer coming back to play in college. Not back to play in college, but coming from the G League to play in college. He averaged 4 points, 5.5 rebounds, and I think that's important. 2.1 blocks per game for the Westchester Knicks. And I think, the fact that, and Keba will still probably start, right? Keba's still going to be your starting 5. But I think having a guy like Ahmed coming off the bench as a phenomenal rebounder. We saw Foose last year, right? Foose was I don't know if he was underrated rebounder, but he was a really pivotal rebounder for BYU. We saw his offensive abilities. I don't think defensively he was a phenomenal defender, but he was a great rebounder. And I think Ahmed coming off the bench as a 5.5 rebound per game player for the Westchester Knicks, I don't think he played very many minutes, and so 5.5 rebounds in a minimal amount of minutes is pretty good. And what it does is it allows Hadim Boop, who I think was uncomfortable playing at the 5, backing up Keba Keita.
Yeah, I think
moving him to the 4. Now I do have my some reservations about putting Hadim Boop at the 4. He's not a shooter, and so at that point you've got 3 shooters, 2 non-shooters on the floor. Not a huge fan of that, but I do like Hadim better at the 4 than he was at the 5.
Yeah, I think it gives Kevin Young just different options and different chess pieces to work with it for matchups. Like basketball, especially college basketball, is crazy in the matchup differences. You'll have, a bunch of midgets that are just running the ball that you're supposed to match up with one game.
Can you say that? Are we going to have to edit that out, Sean?
You can say that. It's not a swear word. Okay. and then the very next game, you could be playing, like a Wisconsin or a Big Ten team that starts 2 7-footers. And Keita, for as awesome as he's been, he back to the basket 7-footer with some good footwork. That's not who he defends well. Now BYU has another chess piece that we can put out there to, again, be able to match up with different teams or be able to make other teams' life difficult. Like when we're playing somebody who's trying to do small ball, that's a more PC compliant.
Small ball, yeah. There we go.
That we can make their life difficult by playing multiple bigs now. I just love the fact that this guy is willing at a high level in the G League to do the dirty work and rebound and block, and that's kind of what he's made a name for himself for.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's just depth, right? BYU needs.
Your reaction had me dying.
I've lost my train of thought. BYU needs the depth, right? And especially since you lose Pickens, you lose Dawson Baker, and really outside of Boop, there was nobody stepping up. I mean, even Boscovich. We saw Boscovich, he had some pretty impactful minutes last year. He's been a shell of himself this year, and I expect him to step up, hopefully later in the season. But he's been, coming off the bench, he's been pretty terrible. And it was nice to see Kostic come in and, put up the numbers he did. What was he? He had 15. What did he have? 15 points? Kostic had 15 points on 5 of 8 shooting from 3.
If that can become like something that's even half consistent,
yeah,
that's huge for this team.
So that was against UC Riverside. And the question is, can he, with Dawson Baker out, can he kind of replace Dawson Baker's production? And I actually don't think his style really matches a Dawson Baker. I think his style matches more of a Trevin Nell from last year. But I would even love that. Like just a guy that can, spot up, shoot from 3. He doesn't have to drive. He doesn't have to do a whole lot defensively. Although I thought defensively he looked pretty good against UC Riverside. He forced a lot of issues on their offensive end. But even if he can just come in and be a Trevin Nell that can just come off the bench and just shoot threes.
It'd be huge. If he can be hunting threes and the teams fear it, then it really helps with spacing. You're right. He never has to even enter the 3-point line. He's just moving around out there a la like Kyle Korver.
Trevin Nell last year. That's literally what Trevin did.
All of a sudden, that team's defense has to play it a different way, which allow our guys, Rob Wright, AJ, Saunders, to be able to drive. Like, it would be huge for this team if Kostic could have some consistency and play like he did last week.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it's fun to see how AJ did. 26 points against UC Riverside on 11 of 17 shooting. He only shot 1 3-pointer in that game. And I think that's AJ's bread and butter. Like, I think if he can shoot the 3, great. That's like gravy on top. But AJ going 11 of 17, 1 3-point attempt. It didn't even make it in 26 points. That's what we need AJ to do. Now, BYU has 2 more non-conference kind of gimme games. Yeah. That I think is kind of the perfect timing for them to get ready for conference play. I think they start with Kansas State in conference play. By the way, did you see the rumor? I don't know if this is official or not, but did you see Utah is like locking BYU fans out?
Yes. No, it's official.
Of tickets?
Well, you can't buy single game tickets, and they're not included in any of their packages.
Yeah.
But then there's also another thing that it seems like that Utah is backdoor selling them on SeatGeek. Like,
to who? Oh, to anyone?
So to anyone. So but they're listing them for like $120 upper bowl, and everyone's like, there's no season ticket holders in the upper bowl at Utah. Like, so they think it must be coming from them.
Well, so it sounds like and
might be a money grab more. I think it looks more like a money grab more than it is a lockout BYU situation.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
From what I read, it was you had to be a donor. You had to donate to be able to buy tickets from the university. And so maybe it's just people that are one-time donors or whatever, just to buy tickets and then resell them. Because honestly, that's what I would do. Depending on how much tickets are, like I would be a donor. Now, I don't know how much it costs to donate. Maybe it's not worth it at that point, but to become a donor, buy tickets and then resell them, maybe you're making a profit off of that. I have no idea, but it's funny
but
that
then
like,
you're wearing that on your conscience for your whole life that you donated to the U. So like, it's not worth it.
No, I'm saying Utah fans. Utah fans want to make a profit. They're not going to go to the game anyway, right? They're just buying them and selling them.
I thought this was something you were considering, and I'm just trying to help you.
Definitely. That's not a financial decision I want to make. No, I would not feel very good about that. Cougar Nation, if the bounce of a basketball is your love language, this one's for you. Introducing the Provo Swish Squad collection, our newest drop, bringing full court energy straight to your wardrobe. We've got breathable, modern fit Provo City hat, the iconic subtle BYU black custom birdie hat with the PVC Y patch, and our new Cosmo dunking tee and hoodie printed on premium items for that perfect, relaxed fit. Clean, comfortable, Provo proud. Go to store.cougarboard.com to gear up and shop the Provo Swish Squad collection while supplies last. Speaking of Utah, we're going to transition now. That was a great segue, by the way, by me. Kyle Whittingham stepping down. And the news of this, I don't think is surprising to anybody that he's leaving Utah. What I thought was surprising was that he's not retiring. And it makes you wonder what's happening kind of behind the scenes. Because I think if he was to retire and sail off into the sunset, nobody would have questioned that. But the fact that he's leaving but still willing to coach is surprising to me. And I think it says a lot about the situation that's going on at Utah.
I've heard different rumors. And so all of these I'll just say from the beginning. I don't know any of these to be true, but there's a lot of smoke here that he kept going back and forth on the decision. And that then Morgan Scalley said, hey, look, I'm leaving if I don't get made the head coach. And that then there was donors that said, we're willing to buy Whit out. And so he was looking at either stepping down or that it's just publicly, hey, we're buying him out. And he chose, hey, I'll step down. So a lot of smoke there. And that is not all that uncommon. I think a lot of older, longtime football coaches, that is how it ends. I've even heard rumors that there was more of that with the Lavell timing than people like to think, that he handled it with grace, but it was somewhat them telling him, hey, we need this to be your last year, because these guys, it becomes their whole life and they're obsessed on it, and that's what makes them great. But at some point, there's people on the outside that's like, hey, we need to get on to what's next. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out for Utah.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a whole lot of controversy behind that. I think I don't blame Kyle for still wanting to coach. I don't blame Utah for wanting to retain their guy that they named head coach in waiting how many years ago? 6, 7 years ago? Like, he's been a head coach in waiting for how long? And I don't blame Scalley for kind of putting this ultimatum out there, like, hey, I've been waiting for this long. I need to be head coach. Like, I'm ready to be head coach. But the question now is Utah, is I get that Scalley's a fantastic defensive mind, and I think he'll be a great head coach. We just don't know. We've never seen him be a head coach, and you wonder, like, Utah's put a lot of effort and investment into Scalley being the next guy. Is he A, ready, and B, a risk or not? Like, is he a safe bet?
There's risk there. I mean, so the safety comes from he runs the same defense, understands the same terminology. Yes, there's some continuity there. From a risk standpoint, though, going from like being one of the top soldiers to being the general is a big change. From a pressure standpoint, from a how important it is to do culture, from a what you can get away with and not get away with. Also, I actually think that this year down the stretch, Utah's defense turned bad. It's going to give him a shorter leash. Like, I don't think that he has multiple bad seasons and people are going to be content. I think if he has one really bad season out of the gates, people are going to be like, look, his last year, his defense wasn't even good. And it'll be interesting. And then there also is, I believe in second chances and repentance and things, but you better believe teams are going to be using against him in recruiting.
Yeah.
Some of his things he's said in the past, racial things, and that will be used against him. And if that really is hurting recruiting, that they're gone. It's a results-based business before. You better believe now that it's owned by private equity, it's going to be all about results-based. And if he's not bringing results fast, he's going to be gone.
Yeah, and look, I actually respect the heck out of Morgan Scalley. I think he's a phenomenal defensive coach. I don't hold against him the things that he said and the news that has come out about him years ago of things that he's texted athletes, right? Like that's whatever. It is what it is. It's water on the bridge. I do worry, as you mentioned, like he's a great defensive mind. I think he's a great X's and O's guy. He's a great schemer. Is he good with staff? Is he good with personnel? Is he a good recruiter? And I think he is a good recruiter, but like those are all things that like now come into play with him as the head coach that he didn't have to worry about as a defensive coordinator. And it's not to say that like Utah could hit a home run with Morgan Scalley, but it's like I feel like it's a pretty big risk hiring a guy with no head coaching experience, and not only hiring him but telling him years ago you are the guy, right? Yeah. That was how they retained Scalley. I think Scalley could have gone somewhere else had they not told him that, had he not been named head coach in waiting. But so now you've retained him. You've put all this effort and energy into retaining him and having him be your next head coach. Is that going to backfire on Utah? We will have yet to see. And now the question too is like, who does he bring in to replace himself as a defensive coordinator? And the talks have been Jay Hill, but as we know, Kalani's extension includes a lot of money for his assistants. And so can Utah outbid BYU? Does Kalani now have the resources to be able to retain Jay Hill? Where does Jay Hill coach next season, in your opinion?
BYU. I think if and when Jay leaves, it's for a head coaching position. I don't think that going to be the D coordinator under Morgan gets him actually closer to being a head coach. I actually think it makes it further. If Morgan Scalley flounders there and Jay is with him, then he gets that bad juju on him. If Morgan Scalley flounders and Jay is at BYU, I absolutely think that Jay would be very high on the list that they're offering to be the next head coach. So I know that pre-heart attack, Jay was very focused on becoming a head coach. And that last year he turned down multiple ones because of that heart attack. A year removed, him healthy again. The guy wants to be a head coach. A week or two ago, it was looking like he was going to be at BYU. Now that it's not, I still think he wants to be a head coach, and I cherish every year BYU keeps him, but I don't think going to Utah to be their D coordinator is the smart chess move for him to make.
It feels very much like a lateral move, and I didn't think it was that controversial to say that, but like, you know, we've talked about my buddy who sits next to me and big Utah fan at work, and you know, he was like, that's not a lateral move. Like Utah has the cachet of defense, right? They've got this.
They're living in the past.
I know he's a homer, and like we're homers. That's fine. You can be a homer, but it still feels like a very lateral. You're literally defensive coordinator for a P4 school to a defensive coordinator at a P4 school. Like I don't think like Utah's history of having a good defense really would be appealing.
No,
as a defensive coordinator coming in, you know, like Scalley's still there. Like I still think their defense is going to be good, regardless of who they bring in to replace him. But like the fact that people think Jay Hill wants to go to Utah because Utah already has a good defense, like I don't think that holds any water at all. And you know, to your point about him being a head coach, you wonder like how willing he is to leave Utah. You know, obviously his family, his wife.
He's got kids and he's got high school age kids.
Yeah. So does he uproot himself? Does he go to, you know, and that's the question for any head coach at any time. Like, you know, you obviously have, more often than not, you have to travel. You have to move somewhere else to be a head coach somewhere else. So like Jay Hill's going to have to make that decision, but I feel like he's more rooted in Utah, and he has been even when he was at Weber. Like he's been in Utah for a long time.
Correct.
And I don't see him leaving the state. And so if he does take a head coaching job, it feels like it's going to be, as you mentioned, like Utah, if and when Scalley struggles.
I can see it. I also think this is a big chance for BYU to assert themselves as the top team in the state. And I think they've done that the last 2 years, where a lot of people get after me. I've got family members and friends that are Utah fans, and sometimes they can get offended at how I want Utah to lose every game. But it comes from an analytical place of that there's a scarce resource of good local talent. And Utah being down absolutely helps BYU recruiting for them to be able to get a higher share of those. And it works the other way. We saw when Utah was up from a conference and winning standpoint, they were getting the majority of the top Utah high school talent, and that's flipped. And with a change in coaching, if they start tripping and they have some issues, we could be in a great spot where if you're the only big program in the state, it is a huge recruiting boon. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping happens out of this coaching switch.
Yeah. So Andrew G3 on Cougar Word made a pretty interesting observation. And this is not, like, for the record, this is not to diminish anything Kyle's done at Utah. Kyle had a phenomenal coaching career. Obviously taking over for Urban Meyer, who was a legend, right, at Utah and has been a legend since. But just to put into perspective, he said Kyle having, quote unquote, only 177 wins really puts into perspective just how incredible Lavell's 250 wins are. He says, I wasn't alive for Lavell's whole career, so it's hard for me to grasp just how legendary his run was at BYU. And so it's helpful to have this kind of like benchmark or barometer of like, this is a guy, Kyle was a guy who had a very successful long career at one school, and even he was really nowhere close to Lavell's 250 win tenure. And it just, like, I think for those that, and I was alive for 10 years of Lavell's career, and so I really didn't get to experience 98 was like the first time I really remember watching a BYU football game, and so I really got like 2 years of Lavell, and it was like two of his worst, right? They weren't great years, like 99 and 2000 were not fantastic years, and so, like, I think people who, like me, who didn't really grow up in the Lavell years don't really appreciate how successful he was. And watching Kyle and him finishing with 177 wins, which is phenomenal, it really puts into perspective just how much success I think Lavell had as a head coach at BYU.
Yeah, for as many years as Lavell coached and for how many games they won basically every freaking year was crazy. The other thing, and again, I was going to say this is not a shot at Whittingham. Maybe it's a slight shot. But you look at Whittingham took over a program that was in a good spot, that had just come off of, a Bowl Alliance, or was it BCS? Either way. They just came from that big bowl game win over Pitt, where when Lavell took it over, BYU was horrible. Tiny stadium no one came to, 20-plus years of losing. And then Lavell very quickly, coming from a high school background at East High, was able to turn BYU around and turn them into this offensive juggernaut winning games. We forget and underestimate like how crazy it is what Lavell did.
Yeah, and it's funny too because his offense has really revolutionized the passing game in college football
and in the NFL. Like his tree of who went to the NFL is crazy.
Yeah. So, yes, we are making Kyle Whittingham's retirement about BYU because this is a BYU podcast. But, again, it does just put into perspective, how phenomenal of a career Lavell had. And so Andrew G3 calling that out I thought was very appropriate. Let's talk about, speaking of revolutionizing college football, the transfer portal, as it's every year seems to be kind of the talk of the town now because it's really shifting the way people think about college football. We're only going to have one transfer portal period this year.
Yeah, which is a difference. Yeah,
different from last year, right? Correct. So last year was two. There was two. I think there was two, and then Jake had his own for some reason. Jake Retzlaff had his own, but there's one this year, and so far, so it's not even open yet, right? But right now we know there are three guys from BYU that are entering the portal: Jake Griffin, Don McKenzie, and LaMason Waller. Two of those receivers, Jake Griffin, offensive lineman. None of those guys really saw a ton of playing time last year. I will say Jake Griffin probably would have competed at least for a starting spot at left tackle with Isaiah Jada gone. And so, like, I don't know if I'm really concerned about those three guys. But is there any sort of concern that not necessarily with those three guys leaving, but just BYU losing more guys down the road? And does this mean anything 3 guys already having announced, without even their bowl game being played yet, 3 guys having announced entering the portal. Is that a sign of anything?
I think it's just a sign of the state of college football. That right now, if you're a fan of a college football team, which our listeners are, you've got to get in your head that this is the standard practice of business now. You're going to have a bunch of players leave, and you're going to have a bunch of players transfer in. And if you're good, you got to have the ones coming in have got to be better overall than the ones you lose. And you're going to lose some good ones too. That's just the migratory nature now of college football. And I do think it's more fair to the players. Like, they should be able to make sure they're in a good spot where they're getting the best chance. Out of those 3, Waller kind of hurts. He had big offers out of college. He turned down some really big programs. I heard he was doing great things in spring before he got hurt. And then he never got any time. And maybe some of these guys, we've seen this in the past, kind of enter and then come back. I'm not feeling that with any of them. But BYU does have work to do in the portal. That was my take. I went down to Dallas. I saw the fourth quarter massacre live. I also, though, saw, we get hung with them for 3 quarters with, I'll just be real, very much, they had better athletes at key positions. And through scheme, we kind of kept ourselves in it a little bit, and then that just ran out. We have to get better. We have to get some dudes.
Yeah, and it's not just better schematically, right? It's
correct.
Talent. You got to get talent.
Correct. And their D-line and linebackers were insane, and they paid for them. They paid $7 million for their D-line alone. BYU, I've heard, paid $10 million for their whole team last year. One of the Kalani renegotiating things, though, they're getting a higher percentage of the $20 million the school can give, and then donors are given more. The number that I'm hearing from people very high at the top is $22.5 million in NIL, so more than double what we spent last year. So we need to go and get some dudes. And to me, our number one thing, and maybe this is just Texas Tech, me overreacting, but we need to get defensive linemen. Their ability just to be on the quarterback in insanely fast speeds was such a huge, huge asset that if you can just have that, it makes you incredibly hard to beat. We have some pieces, but specifically their D tackles. They had 4 NFL D tackles. We have maybe 1 and a couple guys that could turn into that, and we need to upgrade.
Yeah.
I also receiver, like us losing. Now I'm Chase.
Yep.
Us losing Chase makes it so our receiving room that's proven is pretty thin. And I was sitting by some Texas Tech fans, and they were being extremely nice, but in kind of sometimes the harshest comments are nice. And the guy leaned over and said, "I'm amazed at what you guys have done this season with. You guys don't have a single receiver that looks like an NFL receiver."
Wow.
And he's not, he meant from the eye test. Like, I would argue that Chase is probably going to get a chance at camp and maybe could impress some people. I'm a huge fan of Kingston. When he gets the ball, he looks so fast. But he doesn't fit the look of any NFL receiver.
Yeah.
And
he's kind of like your prototypical, like, Tom Brady slot receiver.
Correct.
Right?
The Patriots used guys that look like him.
Yeah.
But we don't have the guy that we had that looked like it the most was JoJo, and is JoJo. But JoJo he hasn't taken that next step. Hagan hasn't taken that next step. Those guys need to have a huge offseason of development, or else we need to bring in some new guys.
Well, they did bring in new guys, but I think this kind of brings into question, because I think Texas Tech really has kind of laid out the blueprint for reloading every year, because it's a fact every year. If you have talent, they're either going to go to the NFL or they're likely going to transfer unless you are a blue blood, which BYU is not. Texas Tech is not. And so the blueprint is that you need to get talent that's ready to go and has experience right out of the gate, and that comes out of the portal. And then you have to retain your talent. So they, obviously Jacob Rodriguez, right? That's a guy they retained. David Bailey is a guy they got through the portal. And so like you've just got to, it's this mix of retaining guys and then bringing guys with experience already in the portal. And then kind of you fill the gaps with freshmen with high school signees. And that's not to say like your high school signees are not important anymore, but I think the focus needs to be shifted to more of this kind of free agency approach rather than trying to build your team from the NFL standpoint, a draft.
Your high school signees may be gone after 1 year, after we just saw with Waller.
Yeah.
We were stoked on signing him, but they still matter, and development still matters, but it has been diminished, and getting guys that are proven and ready to play through the portal is at an all-time high.
Yeah, and they may pan out, right? Like I think the Pula brothers, we'll talk about who BYU signed on signing day. I think they did a really good job bringing in wide receivers.
Correct.
From high school. But it's like, are they all going to be ready? Are they all going to, I worry about JoJo, right? Because I think to your point, and you mentioned this, JoJo has an NFL, at least like a high caliber college body.
Yes.
He's got the intangibles, but he's struggled catching the ball. I'm not sure how great of a route runner he is. Like, I think he's not being targeted a lot. And I don't know if that's because he's not getting open, but he's just not, this year, right? This year, he was not the guy that we hoped him to be. Now, granted, he was hurt for most of the year, and you wonder if he came back, if he was fully healthy.
Yep.
But like JoJo's a guy that worries me. And I don't want to go into next season worrying that Bear doesn't have enough targets. I think Parker's a great target. Carson Ryan's gone. And so can Need fill that place. Obviously Chase Roberts is gone. Can JoJo fill that need? And then outside of those guys, can the guys that I think Tay Nakua could have potentially a really good season next year. I think I hope Cody Hagan can have a really good year next year. And then you hope the Pula brothers, Legend Glasker out of Lehigh.
That guy can play.
That dude's a baller in high school. Can he be a baller in college? Like, can any of these freshman receivers that they're bringing in, that's not even talking about Terrence Sarion, who may or may not be a receiver. He's listed as an athlete. He played receiver in high school. He could be a force to be reckoned with in college. And so you hope that at the receiver level, I do think receiver is an interesting kind of need coming into the season because they do bring, Parker Kingston back. They bring the Pula brothers back who have a lot of hype. They bring Tay Nakua. They bring Cody Hagan. Frischnecht, comes back. So it's like they have guys, they have depth, but they don't have a Chase Roberts again.
Yeah.
And JoJo needs to be that guy. Otherwise, Barry, I think, is going to be in trouble finding targets. Cougar alumni know what it means to rise and shout, and that's exactly what TrueWear Services helps your business do. They specialize in merch production, swag, uniforms, custom printing and design, plus web stores and fulfillment, so repping your company, team, or school is seamless. You've built the brand, now it's time to showcase it. Partner with TrueWear Services today and give your organization the same pride and polish you showed in Cougar Blue. Go to truewearservices.com/CougarBoard to get started. This episode is brought to you by Aptive Pest Control. Aptive believes that every home should be enjoyed. They tailor their pest control treatment plans to target pests when and where they're most active. Plus, if you see pest activity between treatments, Aptive will return to take care of the problem at no additional cost. It's their way of making sure every customer is satisfied and every pest is controlled. If pests stay away, Aptive is why. Visit AptivePestControl.com/LoyalCougars or call 844-966-4787. Mention this promotion to get your initial treatment for just $29. That's AptivePestControl.com/LoyalCougars or call 844-966-4787. Terms and conditions apply. Get home field advantage with Aptive.
And I don't want to, we had a good team, so it feels weird that I have this many needs, but two other big needs in the transfer portal. One is running back room.
Yep. That's assuming LJ leaves, I think.
Yeah, he's going to leave.
I hope not.
Well, what I've heard is that he is having early surgery and he's missing the bowl game. And that the reason of doing that is because he's really prioritizing. He needs to be as healthy as possible for the NFL workouts.
LJ Martin.
Yeah, I think sadly we've seen the last of LJ on a BYU football field, playing at least. He'll probably come back and cheer occasionally. But it was a heck of a run. I love me some LJ. But we didn't have, with Moa being banged up, man, our room was thin. And we need to bring in 3 guys. Like, we need multiple people so that, because A-Rod runs the rock a lot. It's too much just for a one-back system to be healthy. You need multiple guys. And then last but not least, the football is won on the trenches. And I already talked about our D-line, and I think that that's actually a bigger need. Our O-line looked great this year until they started playing NFL guys. And I feel bad. I think that I thought we had a couple NFL guys on our O-line, but then when I saw them against Texas Tech, like the play that Bear fumbled, 3 of their guys made our O-linemen look like they didn't even touch him.
Like Rudy.
Yes. And it's like, okay, maybe that happens once. When you have 3, the play has no chance, and that was not the only play like that. We had a 7.5 out of 10 O-line. But if we want to take the next step where we can go to those games and win against NFL-level D linemen, we need to bring in a couple NFL guys on the O-line. So anyway, $22.5 million. Let's do some work. Let's build a squad. And we gotta beat Texas Tech next year, and that's going to be the way to do it.
I love how you score them a 7.5, like we're at a cup op ordering sauce. 7.5, specifically that half.
I'm just trying to quantify. I actually think they're good, but there's some room that we could get a little notch better.
They were good, and I think they could get better. The problem too is that they lose a lot of guys, right? So they lose Isaiah Jada, they lose Waylon Lapuaho, they lose Austin Leusa.
Yes.
And so it's not only now do you have to improve with new guys, mostly new guys. I think Bruce Mitchell is going to be probably their best offensive lineman coming in, but who are the other guys? And so I agree. I think running back, assuming LJ leaves, and it sounds like more than I do that he's probably leaving.
Yeah, I've heard from 2 close sources that he's not playing in the bowl game, and he's focused on the NFL.
And that's unfortunate because that could change the outcome of that game. Hopefully
Correct.
Sione's healthy enough.
Correct.
And that's kind of the other question too is like, can Sione be healthy? Because you lose Nawahine, and Nawahine was really your only other guy.
Yeah.
Right. We saw the backs behind Nawahine did not get any playing time.
What if they've been saving Damouni just for the bowl game?
He's their secret weapon. You hope so.
Yeah.
But they need, and so we talked about, you and I talked about Devon Eka, coming in from Lehigh, but again, a freshman guy.
Yeah.
It's funny, like as good as this recruiting class was, I think he was the lowest composite score of the class, and
I've told you I'm super high on that guy. We checked the box of having an incredible high school class.
Yeah. Now go out and get a portal class.
Correct.
Yeah. Be Texas Tech. You've got to beat Texas Tech at their own game, which is bringing in transfer portal talent and retaining guys. And it goes back to, that's what I said, when we first started this segment, is that's the blueprint to becoming a conference champion and beating Texas Tech at their game. And so, that's hopefully that's what Kalani did when he went and got the additional NIL money. I think that's what he has in mind is to win in the portal. That's where you have to win.
Yep.
By the way, they did sign a bunch of guys who are going on missions too. So Ryder Lyons, Brock Harris, Adam Bywater, Ty Ghosh, and Lopeti Moala. And then the guys that they did sign that are going to start likely day one, Bot Mulitalo, who we haven't even really talked about. He's an offensive lineman that could start right away, right? Talking about guys
he's
leaving.
The type of guy that I'm talking that is NFL written all over him.
Yeah, but he's a freshman. So
Correct.
It's again can these freshmen make impacts early on? We already talked about the other receivers they're bringing in, Devon Eka, and so can these guys make an impact early on? We will see, but I would feel more comfortable if they brought in guys from the portal. Okay, moving on now to we talked about this last week, me and Hema, which is Notre Dame backing out of the bowl game. And the story kind of continues because not only is Notre Dame not playing in the bowl game, but then their AD comes out and claims, I don't know if this was explicitly claimed this or if it was implied or it was actually an interview with their running back or something.
Yeah.
That was saying something like, these ADs of other schools are freezing out Notre Dame. They're refusing to schedule Notre Dame. And at Barstool Irish on X actually says lots of rumors about ADs freezing us out. Just tell us you're scared to play us without telling us you're scared to play us.
Yeah.
Which is so, again, just going back to the irony of Notre Dame refusing to play in the bowl game. And I get that we're not claiming, we can claim, but I'm not claiming that they're scared to play BYU. But the fact that they're ducking bowl games because they want to take their ball and go home, and then a week later saying other teams are scared to play us and they're ducking us.
It's bad timing.
It's terrible timing. Like, it's just so hypocritical, and so it's like, is Notre Dame, is Notre Dame actually making a statement? Are they making the statement they think they're making?
No, absolutely not. The statement that they're making is that they're exposing that they are high maintenance and that they have a self-perception of themselves that is bigger than what reality is. And that's getting exposed. Like, you look at their resume wasn't better. Yes, I do have some empathy that for some reason the committee was blowing smoke, on them every single week, only to flip it the very, very last week, which it's like, I feel a little bad that they got the rug pulled out from under him. But two, their resume shouldn't have been in. And for them just to have the total meltdown, panic attack, absolute just temper tantrum has been a sight to see. And BYU fans are like, look, we've known they've been tough to deal with for years. Look at our contracts that they never fulfilled and would find every loophole to not play us, or the neutral game that they kept leveraging so that in no way was it a neutral game. And it's just...
And that was supposed to be a home game for BYU.
Correct.
They converted a game at Lavell Edwards Stadium into a
Vegas game,
but Shamrock, whatever.
They controlled 90% of the tickets. They controlled all of the audio. Yep. It became a home game
in Vegas.
In Vegas, and I'm happy that Notre Dame is being exposed for the prima donnas, paper tigers that they are, and hopefully this makes them have to play in reality that everyone else is playing in. I hope that this gentleman's agreement that that supposedly everyone agreed to is now going to light of next year. If they're in the top 12, they're automatically in. No other school has that. I hope that gets unwound, and there's big yelling for that right now of why the crap would we give Notre Dame this? Yeah, make them play by the same rules everyone else is playing by.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, they're not next year, right? If they're in the top 12 next year, they're an auto bid.
Yeah,
which is a new
correct.
Thing. So it's if next year's rules applied this year, they would have been in the college football playoff.
And that's what I'm hoping. I hope that gets unwound, because it's not there's an agreement. I'm forgetting what the legal term is, but there's it's actually just a commonality to agree that all sides agreed to, but those are not hard for them to say, hey, we no longer agree. So hopefully it gets unwound.
Yeah, you wonder what happens. And I think after this week, we don't have to talk about Notre Dame anymore, because we'll have a bowl game that BYU will be.
Unless we beat them in basketball this year.
In the tournament?
Yeah.
Oh, I freaking love that. That'd be awesome. Can't duck out of that game.
Correct.
Yeah, and it'll be yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Notre Dame's Notre Dame, and I don't think much is going to change in terms of their brand, but this definitely puts a little bit of a stain on the way teams are thinking about Notre Dame. And you wonder, too, if the committee looks at Notre Dame and they think of the drama that they caused this year, is that gonna affect their decision?
Are they gonna get the BYU treatment and be at 13 next year?
But I think
that there's a good chance. The college football does not like someone poking them in the eye. Yes, it's like a gentleman's club, a good old boys club, but they don't like it when Notre Dame is throwing a temper tantrum. It'll be interesting to see if they get treated differently next year because of how they acted this year.
Yep. All right, next week we've got a bowl game to talk about. I want just your quick prediction. We'll talk about stats, and we'll preview Georgia Tech. Give me a prediction for the bowl game.
BYU will win, but Georgia Tech is a tough opponent. They played Georgia tough. They play a style of football that is could give BYU fits.
They also almost lost to Colorado, which
there you go. But
to be fair, BYU almost did too.
Correct. That BYU, but and again, we're going to have to what's our running game going to look like without LJ? How healthy is Bear's foot?
Mm-hmm. He was in a boot last week.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's some real things to talk about and look at next week. I think it's a fun game against a ranked opponent, and they're nothing to sleep on. We should beat them, but they've got a lot of fight.
Yeah. The joke is that that Georgia, 3 or 6 point loss to Georgia was their best win of the season. I think they have the potential to keep games close. I do think BYU is a more talented team. I think BYU wins 17-14. but it could easily swing the other way. And again, to your point, it's really going to depend on who's healthy, who's actually playing in the game, who wants to play in the game, not only who's healthy, but who actually wants to be there. But we'll talk about more of the matchup itself next week. Tosh, thanks for joining us again this week. Let's keep this thing going. This is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Edmonds. That's Tosh McIntosh. If you like what you heard today, head over to YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. We do have a drop this week. I'm not sure if we're giving stuff away, but if we do, leave us a comment and we'll hit you up and we'll give away some of our drop items. For now, though, this is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. We will see you next week.
Have a good one.